In the headlines, passengers walk away unscathed after a small plane experienced landing problems at Canefield Airport on Friday. After years of advocacy, the DAPD welcomes government's commitment in the budget to implement articles on the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities. And the Minister for Small Business Development welcomes the ban on styrofoam and plastic cutlery, but acknowledges it could have some initial impact on small fast food vendors. I am Andrea Louis with the Channel 5 News. Back with the details after this.
There are signs everywhere. Pay attention whether you're male or female. Visit your health center to get screened. It's a preliminary test to determine if you are exposed to the HIV virus, an STI, or tuberculosis. Some people who are HIV positive also have tuberculosis. But there's hope. Tuberculosis can be cured. And yes, you can live a full life with HIV. Talk to your doctor. Be responsible. Help stop the spread of TB, HIV. Encourage everyone to get tested.
Thank you for staying with us. First up, no injuries have been reported from a landing mishap at the Canefield Airport on Friday. The incident, which is under investigation, occurred around 9:30 Friday morning when an express carrier registration number N590DR on arriving from St. Thomas crash-landed at the Canefield Airport. According to Chief Executive Officer of the Dominica Air and Seaports Authority, Binma Badwell, the nose gear failed, causing the aircraft to drag before coming to a complete stop on the runway. Investigations will also be carried out by the Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, which was notified of this incident. 5 passengers and 1 crew member were aboard the plane. In other top stories, the Dominica Association of People Living with Disabilities, DAPD, is pleased that after years of advocacy, government has decided to implement certain critical provisions within the Convention of the Rights of People Living with Disabilities.
In his budget address, Prime Minister Skerrit made a commitment to have the Ministry of Health and Social Services work closely with the DAPD to make sure these articles are implemented.
The provisions made by the Prime Minister and the Government of Dominica to address the needs of persons with disabilities, DAPD welcomes immensely. It tells us that the Government of Dominica has been following our advocacy and development work and has finally listened to our appeal and recognized that we as persons with disabilities do have an equal role to play in the development of Dominica. I must say that these were part of the submissions that we made during the consultation on the national budget, and also say that we have been preparing for this for years now.
In fact, it's been 6 years since Dominica ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
We are preparing ourselves to work with the government to ensure that this implementation takes place. And of course, we have already begun formulating the plan of action because also, a few years ago, the then Ministry of Social Services, Family and Gender Affairs appointed a consultant in the person of Martin Anthony, who has been working with us to ensure that implementation of the convention takes place, and formulation of a plan of action was one of the areas that we have begun addressing.
Education and adequate standard of living and social protection are 2 of the other articles included in the DAPD's submission made to government. The DAPD says it's looking forward to concrete and practical implementation and realization of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
Still in budget-related news, government's 2018-2019 national budget of just under $1 billion has come in for much criticism by the opposition. MP for Portsmouth, Ian Douglas, who opened the budget debate, says Dominica is on its way back up from the widespread devastation caused by the hurricane.
And you see that the budget enunciates the goal of making Dominica the first climate resilient country in the world, because we recognize that those weather systems will be very frequent and regular. And all of our planning, all of our development planning, all of our infrastructural development planning, all of our economic planning has to take into consideration the severe weather systems that seem to be the norm right now. So that was the basis upon which the budget was crafted, so that we can bounce back from those weather systems as quickly as possible. So all of our water systems, our power, you see that we have pledged to continue our investment in geothermal. We've spent almost $100 million drilling the wells and doing the investigations. And then we're about to go into the next phase where we're discussing with DOMLEC how much the power purchase agreement, how much we can make the power available to them. And the numbers show that geothermal power will in fact be cheaper than diesel-generated electricity.
Douglas says all these provisions in the budget for renewable energy and new building codes and standards are meant to make Dominica more climate resilient.
The government is right now embarking on a serious building initiative throughout the country. We'll be putting on close to 3,000 homes, 68 in Portsmouth, in Georgetown, another 65 in Cotton Hill. A number of buildings have already been constructed in Point Michel, Soufriere. Persons are actually at their homes, living in their homes as we speak. And those homes are hurricane resilient and climate resilient homes that will not be damaged or destroyed. So those apartment buildings really will be like hurricane shelters in those communities, where persons will be able to stay in their homes and sit out harsh weather systems like hurricanes and storms.
Douglas says another major announcement was that of plans by government to build an international airport. This is one of the provisions mentioned in the budget, which has drawn much criticism from the opposition. They are claiming that there is no provision for an international airport in the estimates.
The Prime Minister, of course, announced the serious plans that we have for the construction and the building of the international airport. We have in an account in the region of about $180 million sitting down in an account, in a savings account. We've been able to, for the last almost a year now, been able to save $5 million US, which is about 13 million EC dollars every month towards the Airport Development Fund. There's no government before in the history of Dominica who has taken serious actions towards the development of an international airport in Dominica. Because United Workers' Party spoke about an international airport, but they literally mortgaged the country. All the dividends that were to come to government from Cable and Wireless at the time, now Flow, and DOMLEC, really were pledged to a loan, $150 million loan in Trinidad and Tobago. And there is something called a sinking fund, where $1 million goes into that sinking fund every year, so that when the loan matures, when the bonds mature next year, really 2019, $150 million have to be found by the taxpayers of Dominica to pay back that loan. Now that could be monies that could have built tremendous amount of homes, could build roads, could even start the works on the airport. Because if we have 160 million in cash sitting in an account now and 150 million, that would have been 300 million EC dollars that we could have gone very far with the international airport. But those are the kinds of things that the budget focuses on.
Special focus has been placed in the 2018-2019 budget on how Dominica intends charting its way towards becoming the world's first climate-resilient country. Minister for Commerce, Enterprise and Small Business Development, Roslyn Paul, says this budget has laid out a pathway to a more sustainable future for Dominica.
You would have realized that in his budget address, he outlined the many measures to be put in place if we are to achieve this vision. And in this year's budget, there were provisions made that would begin to take us through to becoming that resilient country that would sustain our livelihoods and make our society better. And it's much to be done, but The budget did speak to that, and it also ensured that provisions are made across sectors, because each sector has a very critical role to play in the development of Dominica. So it was a well put together budget. In fact, there were no added taxes, and there were incentives for key groups as well, the private sector. There were incentives for the people with disabilities. So it has embraced the social and economic development of the country, and it is left to us to each play our role as ministries, as communities, as individuals, to make Dominica, to build better and to make Dominica more resilient.
The minister says there is not much about this budget that the opposition could rebut. She feels that the budget is overwhelmingly positive and that the opposition focuses a bit too much on the negatives.
So I think they just seek to see if they could put a negative front. But as statesmen, that's not what you are called to do. You are called to look at what is in the best interest of Dominica, give alternatives, and do not cry down what is positive. For example, the NEP, which has played a very critical role in the social and economic well-being of people, and allowing people to contribute to their community, to their families, to their well-being. And so while there may be room for improvement, but it is not something that should be cried down. And also I listened to the opposition leader, and while the budget articulated the step-by-step processes and measures to be put in place for Dominica becoming a more resilient country, you would have noticed that the opposition leader was quite silent on that, but for a few comments. So he had no alternative solution or no additions that would make sense to us.
A stronger fleet of trucks is being promised to the public by management of the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation. General Manager of the corporation, Florian Mitchell, says the company is set to receive new trucks over the next few months, and this will further enhance the service provided to the Dominican public.
Well, right now we have a stronger fleet complement. Again, kudos to the Ministry of Finance. Again, that was keeping in part of the Soils Management Improvement Plan last year, and we received again financial support from the Ministry of Finance. We procured 2 vehicles. We have them out in the environment. I mean, you might have seen them, 2 nice white trucks. We shall be receiving another truck before the end of the year, again through grant funding for Korea and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Next year, probably in the first quarter, we shall be receiving an additional 3 brand new equipment, again from the Japanese government. Again, all that is to strengthen the collection aspect of it.
The current fleet of trucks is being used for multiple functions, and private companies are also being used to help the corporation carry out its duties.
Our fleet complement, in terms of compactor trucks, we have 5 compactor trucks, we have a couple tipper trucks, we have another truck that we use for recycling, then we have the other equipment that we use for the derelict vehicles. So we have different equipments for different applications. Because some of the areas, it might be difficult for you to compact the truck, so you need a tipper truck to go in there. Probably sometimes the Bellevue area, some areas in Mount Daniel, some areas in Lubia like Lower Road, you could only send a tipper truck, so you have different vehicles for different applications. And we are also still utilizing a couple private compactor trucks to ensure efficiency and continuity of the service.
Mitchell appealed to the public to put out garbage on the days and times announced in order to ensure the effectiveness of the collection service.
As I always tell people, I mean, you could have brand new trucks, you could have bins for everybody, but there are a few components. One, so it is ability to ensure that the trucks are there on time, and second, you, the end user, to ensure that you adhere to the rules. Then you could have brand new trucks, and if you're putting your garbage out, for example, if you live in the Goodwill area, the truck passes Monday morning, you put your garbage out Sunday evening or Sunday 5 o'clock. You're going to blame. You're not going to blame the service intensity if a dog pass, So that's what we say. The trucks and the equipment are there to serve the people, but the people have to ensure they adhere to the collection days and times.
Coming up on the Channel 5 News, we hear from a clinical psychologist working with children from the Point Michelle area to address the trauma of Hurricane Maria. That and more after the break.
Rudolph Thomas Enterprise in Portsmouth, your suppliers of building materials and hardware products. Over 20 years experience in the business. Rudolph Thomas has lumber and plywood, galvanized and fenced pipe. Check out Rudolph Thomas for ceramic and vinyl floor and wall tiles, nails, nuts and bolts, paint and painting supplies. And check out their line of electrical and hand tools. Go now to Rudolph Thomas on 1240 Bay Street in Portsmouth.
Welcome back. The Minister for Small Business Development, Honorable Roslyn Paul, says there are efforts locally to produce biodegradable alternatives to styrofoam and plastic cutlery. In his 2018-2019 budget presentation, the Prime Minister announced that effective the 1st of January 2019, there will be a ban on all hard-to-recycle plastics commonly used in food packaging in the country. The list includes plastic, straws, plates, forks, knives, styrofoam cups, and containers. These items are considered harmful to the environment. But how will the ban affect small fast food vendors who rely heavily on this material to serve their takeaway customers? Those who use styrofoam and other harmful plasticware have 6 months in which to make the transition to more environmentally friendly alternatives. The minister believes while there may be some uneasiness at first, it will all work out as this measure is in the best interest of everyone concerned.
I know it would affect perceived or maybe realistically affect small businesses, but we would have to create the necessary awareness, and it is in the best interest of even the small businesses themselves. They would realize that using these things, it's not disposed of properly. So it is also an opportunity. There are paper bags which are biodegradable, so instead of putting the meals in a plastic for restaurateurs, you can use paper bags, and they're also biodegradable. Right here in this country, people selling biodegradable plastics and other materials. It is also an opportunity for new enterprise to evolve, because I have been exposed, I know of where leaves, straw, screw pine, people who know screw pine, I have seen these very plates and boxes in these screw pine leaves. And so it's probably the opportunity to look at new techniques, new technology of doing things. It will be an opportunity that we will help people to even explore, probably do the necessary research, do the stimulate or see if we seek opportunities for the understanding how it is done.
People from Point Michelle and environs are getting some much-needed psychological support as the anniversary of Hurricane Maria looms.
This was among the aims of a week-long visit by a team of 23 individuals of various skill sets from Trinidad and Grenada. The team forms part of the Franciscan Institute, which responds to natural and man-made disasters throughout the Caribbean. Among the activities during the team's visit was a day camp for children aged 8 to 16. One of the clinical psychologists with the team, Dr. Karen Moore, says the interaction with the children show they are still being affected by the impact of Hurricane Maria.
As part of the Franciscan Institute trauma team, this is the 4th time I've been to Dominica since Hurricane Maria. So what we saw at the beginning was a lot of anger, a lot of acting out, being unable to settle, being very touchy and reactive to any perceived provocation or insult from another child. Another child might just pass too close and then there's a conflict. We're seeing very much the same behavior, which is saying to us that the trauma from Hurricane Maria is alive and well, which we would expect because it is nearly the anniversary.
Dr. Moore says the anniversary effect could also manifest itself in adults, which would trickle down to the children. However, she says she believes the camp has been helpful to the young ones.
We would expect that family members will also be tense and anxious because it is the rainy season, it is hurricane season, so everybody is on edge because of that, and of course the children will pick that up too. So we have noticed two ends of the spectrum. We've noticed the children who are, as I said, very reactive, prone to conflict, lots of anger, and then the children who are completely shut down and withdrawn. We had a corner in the room that we called a safe place, which is where you could go. You didn't have to explain why. If you had overwhelming emotions during the session, you could go there and you could stay there and you were safe there, and whenever you were ready, you could come out. And the children used that safe place all the time. From the time we introduced it, they used it, they took to it. So we think that they are very eager for help with their emotions.
The day camp for Point Michel youth was not the only reason for the Franciscan Institute's stint in Dominica. Families within the community were also visited and got support in more ways than one.
2 nurses who have been part of the team, they've been going on doing the house-to-house visits, helping people, checking up on people's, in terms of people who are hypertensive, people who are diabetic, providing those kinds of support services, most particularly to the children in the community, because of course the children can't heal if the family continues to be broken, so we recognize the need, even as we reach out to the children, to do so to the families. And the feedback we've been getting from the nurses also suggests that even at home, the parents and family members are hearing and seeing things that suggest that the camp is making some kind of an impact.
The Franciscan team hopes to put a sustainable plan in place to help with the trauma treatment of the people of Point Michel. The team also plans on visiting Dominica again to continue lending support to the people as they recover from the trauma of Hurricane Maria.
And government's $1 million investment in the cooperative sector is being hailed as a move in the right direction. That's the sentiment from former president of the Beekeepers Cooperative, Lennox Fagan. Bees have been highlighted as among the necessities for a vibrant and flourishing agriculture industry. According to Fagan, following Hurricane Maria, more than 50% of hives in the country had been destroyed, but with assistance from other partners, the apiculture industry is bouncing back.
Due to Hurricane Maria, about 65% of hives were destroyed. Currently, there are about 250 hives remaining on the island of Dominica. The Global Environmental Fund, Jeff Small Grant, SGP, has been a great partner, funding, training, and setting up of a model apiary at Layu.
Fagan says things are looking up for the apiculture industry with a significant investment from government and plans to develop a honey processing plant with the funds.
The government of Dominica has pledged to provide the cooperative sector with $1 million to assist cooperatives on the island. This cooperative welcomed the idea and proposed to set up a honey processing plant to facilitate the packaging and marketing of raw honey from beekeepers. And if I could expand on that, we want to do it like the way the bee oil cooperative buy the bee leaf or buy the oil from members and they do the processing. So basically that is the same model.
He further challenged fellow beekeepers to be more serious about the industry in order to reap the benefits and contribute to the country's food security.
We are aware that Dominica has the capacity to have over 20,000 hives. But our membership need to look at apiculture as a business and not a hobby.
The Beekeepers Cooperative started in 1992 and registered as a cooperative society in 2008. As of 2018, its membership stood at 30.
M&J Covering is the producer of designed galvanized and galvalume in Dominica. They design to your specifications, color and length, 4 styles of galvanized and galvalume pre-painted roofing sheets as requested, and supply all your galvalume accessories. M&J Covering helps you control spending and reduce waste. At M&J Covering, they are also equipped to build your roof to precise standards anywhere on island. So come to M&J Covering at 1 Mile in Portsmouth or call 445-5001 275-5003 today.
To end the news, the headlines again. Passengers walk away unscathed after a small plane experienced landing problems at Canefield Airport on Friday. After years of advocacy, the DAPD welcomes government's commitment in the budget to implement articles of the Convention on the Rights of People Living with Disabilities. And the Minister for Small Business welcomes a ban on styrofoam and plastic products, but acknowledges it could have some initial impact on small fast food vendors. Feel free to contact us at news@marpin2k4.com. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Andrea Louis, and to all of our viewers around the world, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend.